Hey Cascade Church, welcome to another Wednesday's Word. My name is Tim, I'm the pastor here, and today we're going to look at the end of Leviticus, some things about servanthood, and how the whole Bible points to Jesus. So at the end of Leviticus, we get the year of Jubilee, one of the promises and feasts that I don't think they ever celebrated, but it was laid out to be this amazing thing. Get this, every 7 years you would take a year off, not just a long weekend, a year off. God would provide enough bounty in the land that they would have enough in their storehouses so they could take a year and just rest, relax, and rekindle like God created the world to be. And what you're seeing is that God is regaining the book of Genesis. So in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth in 6 days, and on the seventh he rested. We follow that same creation pattern weekly, and God says that should be even deeper. So every 7 years, we take a general Sabbath, and then every 7/7, so every 49, we take a super Sabbath called the year of Jubilee. Now, the year of Jubilee, a few things would happen. All the slaves would be set free. All the land that had been purchased because people went into debt and sold off their ancestral land would be freely given back. And so there was a rekindling, a reshaping of the socio-economic world. So some people, just naturally, the way things work, end up getting very rich. Others get very poor through providence, through chance, through luck, if you want to call it, through bad decision making. And so if in a normal system, if my grandpa was a foolish farmer, he'd sell off part of our land, and by the time I got to it, there might not be much land left. That's how things often work here in America. Back then, if my grandpa was a bad farmer and sold off a bunch of his land, my dad would have to wait till the year of Jubilee and get it all back. And my dad would have a fresh slate. If my grandpa's mistakes were so bad that he sold himself into slavery, and my dad or I were born into that same slavery, at the year of Jubilee, and actually it's supposed to happen every 7 years, not just the year of Jubilee, all the slaves are set free. And when you're set free, they're not just giving you the clothes on their back. They're supposed to give you money and seed and provision so that you can restart yourself in society. So it's not just homeless ministry, it's social development, which is harder, slower work that all of Israel was called to do. And this was built in because God is a God who loves freedom. He loves his people to be free ever since the Garden of Eden when we messed it up. And it's easy to blame Adam and Eve, but I probably would have done the same thing. Ever since then, God has been working to reverse the curse, to bring us into a place where we're in paradise, this walled garden that he protects us in, where we work, where we love each other, we love him, and have joy. And the year of Jubilee is a symptom, a beginning of that. And as I mentioned before, there's no history of Israel ever celebrating this feast, which is just heartbreaking. God gives us such an amazing feast. And you don't see it in Joshua. You don't see it under David or Hezekiah. They brought back the Passover at times, but never brought in the year of Jubilee. And that's why it's so important in Luke 4, when we'll get there in a few weeks, when Jesus preaches at his hometown in Nazareth. This is one of his first sermons. He takes a scroll of Isaiah, and unrolling it, and this is in Luke 4, verses 18, he found a place where it's written, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me. He has anointed me to proclaim," and all the next are words from the year of Jubilee. He's anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor, freedom for the prisoners, recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free, and proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. The year of the Lord's favor was a synonym for the year of Jubilee. So Jesus is saying, I am the year of Jubilee. He rolled up the scroll, sat down. There was eyes of everybody on him. And he began to say, today, this is fulfilled in your hearing. I've come, Jesus says, to set the prisoners free. I've come to relieve debts. I've come to change the whole socio-economic fabric of the world. And that's what he's been doing through the early church, through history, that's he's going to do in the second coming. And we're in the middle of that. And that's why Jesus came to serve. At the very end of Matthew 10, Jesus says, and I've got a shirt Erica gave me for Christmas where it says, serve. And on the side it says from Mark 10, that the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many. And here's the thing, the only way we can have a year of Jubilee is if we have the mindset of a servant. That it's not our goal to get rich. It's not our goal to be better than others. Our goal is to make others free. Our goal is to give people back what God intended them to have in terms of dignity and flourishing. People who want to be served will never bring a year of Jubilee, which is why Israel never did it. But Jesus says that we can serve just like him. And so sometimes we're going to give up our own money and find even more freedom seeing how God provided, the way he provided 6 years of work with 7 years of just miraculous supply. When we're miraculously generous, God gives to us. Now, this isn't prosperity gospel. It doesn't mean that if you give to the poor, God's going to make you rich and give you a purple Lamborghini. It means that if you give to the poor, God's going to give you something better than physical riches. He's going to give you joy. He's going to give you the dignity of working in his world, of doing what he does, of setting prisoners free. That's why all the early abolitionists were Christians. That's why we can see that God never intended slavery. This weekend, we're going to be looking at the issue of slavery, so I don't want to steal too much of my thunder, but at the beginning of Mark 10, they ask Jesus about divorce. And they bring him some passages from Deuteronomy where all the laws about divorce that we just read. And Jesus doesn't go tick for tat through those laws and doesn't say, no, those don't apply. What he does is he goes behind the laws to the creation. And he says, in creation, there was one man, one woman for life. That's marriage. Divorce laws, that's because of your hard hearts. God knew you were going to make mistakes, that you'd sin, and he gave you these laws to mitigate against the damage you would do to each other. And what Esau McCulley in the book, Reading While Black, and I'm going to be plugging this in this weekend's Friday Cascade Loop and talking about it a little bit Sunday. Wonderful book, but he takes that thinking about slavery and says, yeah, there's lots of laws about slavery, but if you go back to Genesis, God's character is not one of an enslaver. God's character is a liberator. And so he never says, go and have slaves. Instead, he says, here's some laws around slavery to mitigate the damage you do to each other in a broken society that I am beginning to set people free. There would be no year of Jubilee if God believed in slavery. There'd be no 7 years every Israelite slave going free if God believed in slavery. I believe that. We're going to talk about that Sunday. So this week, remember that Jesus is your Jubilee. Look for him because he's where grace and joy and freedom come from. Have a great one.